Tonight, a week-long reduction in violence between the Taliban and United States Afghan security forces is set to begin tomorrow. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani welcomed the 7-day violence reduction, calling it an essential step towards a ceasefire and lasting peace in the country. If it all goes well, the U.S. and the Taliban will sign an agreement on February 29th in Doha, Qatar. That will lead to the withdrawal of thousands of U.S. troops and the start of comprehensive peace talks between the Afghan government and the insurgents. The deal could represent a chance for peace after 18 years of war and the end of the U.S. military presence in the country, currently at more than 12,000 troops, dating back to 2001. Joining me now is Jessie Jane Duff, an advisory board member of Women for Trump and a retired gunnery sergeant in the U.S. Marine Corps. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We're excited to have you this Friday night. So let's start with this week-long violence reduction plan that Secretary of State Mike Pompeo announced. U.S. troops have been in Afghanistan since 2001. So, Jenna, why a 7-day truce? What's the significance here, almost 20 years later?
Right. It's important to see that the Taliban can hold their ranks. For example, they have a lot of local rivalries and a lot of problems that are internal that have nothing to do, that seem to get mixed up in the U.S. operation. So can they, and will they control their own ranks from having any firing, any attacks? Keep in mind, we had 2,400 troops killed in Afghanistan, over 20,000 wounded. And with that, just under 34,000 Afghan civilians have been killed, people who weren't even involved in these conflicts, in the crossfire. So essentially, the Taliban has screwed up basically every opportunity they have had to come to the peace table with the United States. Often it's been an IED that has killed American troops, such as a gunnery sergeant that was killed, I believe it was in December, as I recall. And when that happened, the president withdrew any forward movement with the talks. They were even invited to Camp David at one point. So this 7 days is a trial period for the Taliban to demonstrate that they can control their ranks, not have any more firing, have their ranks withhold their fire, and once they prove that they can do this, then we can move forward with some peace talks.
Jessie, can we talk about this agreement that both sides are expected to sign on February 29th? What do you know about it?
Well, we are looking again at seeing that the Taliban holds their fire. If they do that, and the U.S. for that matter, but the U.S. has obviously not been trying to engage on those levels. But once we see on the 29th that has happened, we will have a reduction of forces with the U.S. personnel. Right now, there are anywhere between 12,000 and 13,000 U.S. personnel based there, bringing it down to 8,600, and then at that point, slowly withdrawing. It doesn't mean that we don't see that terrorism is still a threat, but the Taliban will be signing an agreement that they will not promote any terrorist activities, and they will support the Afghan government. After 18 years and such a grave loss of life for the U.S., at some point we have to pivot and ensure that the Afghanistan government is withholding their promise to the United States and ensuring that the Taliban does not harbor terrorists and criminals ever again, and without the United States having to hold the wire for them.
See, the U.S. and Taliban have tried to work together before. For the most part, it's failed. Can we trust the Taliban this time around? What's different?
I don't think that you can ever trust your enemies, but you have to keep them close so you can watch. Here's what's different. We now know what caused 9/11. We know that al-Qaeda was the root of that. We know that Afghanistan had harbored Osama bin Laden. That essentially is what drove us into Afghanistan to push this back. But what happens is you start having mission creep, where your mission starts changing into 20 different directions, not necessarily based upon the original intention of our 9/11 attacks. What we cannot become involved in is a lot of the tribal differences that have been going on for generations.
All right,
but what we do want to ensure is democracy sustains itself.
We have to end it there. Thank you so much for your insight. Advisory board member of Women for Trump, Jessie Jane Duff. Thanks so much for being on again.